Oh, wowza.
It is 100% different, isn't it?
So weird.
It's a very bold design.
I think it's like the point bit where you think, well, wow, like, you just got to address it there.
Initial for me is how much club face there is. Just how much face there is.
Yeah, have a bunker, I could see that.
It's going to look so inspiring.
It's going to look a big profile, isn't it?
A big profile. But I think what we need to do is have a little look at all the tech that's going on in there. So,
well, let's go and do that.
Sit down and do that. So the Cutter Wedge is a pretty distinct looking golf club, isn't it?
That is like maybe a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So compared to any other wedge you've ever sat down on the floor or looked out on a rack in a shop, this looks very, very different. But different is sometimes very good.
Yeah, it's a very bold design. I think the first thing to look at is that club face. When you look down at that face, it is different to anything you've seen.
Yeah, so it's very V'd at the bottom. So there's very, like, literally pinches in. There's a lot of club face to look at was the first thing. So like we've seen it before in like the Callaway high toe, but this just takes it to another level. This now branches out both sides. If you did have that down on the toe of the heel, you would really notice where that face was really pointing at address. So sits lovely and square, but there isn't a lot of sole in contact with the floor.
No, there's not a lot of sole in contact with the floor, which actually is a good thing for keeping the speed, keeping the momentum through the ball. They're talking about designing the sole very much like the front of a boat to try and keep the club moving forwards in a straight line through the turf. It's a very bold claim. It is certainly something very different to we've seen before, but when you look down at that sole and when you look at the club face as it sits in address, it really is a completely different looking golf club to what you've seen before. It sits very square to the floor. The sole of the club just lets the club sit down. Doesn't matter what height you are, it really just sits very flat to the ground. We're obviously both very different heights, and our handle height would be very different, but for both of us with the same golf club, looked like the club just pointed dead straight.
It did. And when you flip the club around, as you'll see on the screen here, now the back of the wedge looks very, very different again.
Yes.
So we're talking more perimeter weighting. So you would have seen this more on irons. They talk about perimeter weighting.
Yes.
And also about getting the weight away from the face. So more putter technology. So get the weight back. So like something that's been very, very popular on tour is obviously the TaylorMade Spider. That's all about trying to get that weight back and to the edges, to the perimeter of the club. And that's what they've done here with this wedge.
Yeah, I mean, bringing that weight back into the sides, very much like the idea behind the square drivers in the past, where it just keeps that MOI, keeps that stability to twisting through the ball.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a fad in drivers. We all know a few companies had a try and they realised that actually that forgiveness didn't generate maximum distance. Obviously with a wedge, you're not trying to create maximum distance. If you can hit the ball straight every time and it comes out maybe a little more than you think, then it's something that's then easier to rein back.
You're trying to keep it as square as possible for as long as possible through a multitude of different lines that you're going to hit this club from.
Yes.
Which is what you're going to see next.
Yeah, so part 2, stay tuned for that. Link will be in the description and obviously in the corner of the screen here in a second. We are going to be testing this on all sorts of different lies.
Just a little bit.
Aren't we just? And also, we're going to put this in the hands of a few people and see what they have to say.
Yeah, so we want people's initial reactions to this wedge, what it looks like, and what their first thoughts are about the wedge, because it does look so different. And then ultimately get it in their hands and let them test it for themselves.
Exactly. This is a really interesting product, and I think it deserves our full attention, because a company that is being this bold with their claims of, you know, just to manufacture this club that is so totally different, I think it's worthy of us to give it the time to test it out of different lies. And if you guys can get your hands on one, it's definitely one worth testing.
So as always, guys, do all the YouTube bits and pieces, hit the thumbs up button. That always gives YouTube a little nudge to let them know that we're doing really good stuff.
Yes, and we'll see you down here on the channel next time. Bye bye.